The opinions of the guests and host are their own and do not represent the opinions of Ironclad, the Border Patrol, or the Department of Homeland Security.
Yeah, every time I talk about this conversation, it's a supply and demand, and we have to always question, why is America the biggest consumers of these drugs? What is it about America that in the past 20 years has turned into the biggest consumer of these drugs? And that's always a question, and that has almost irrelevant to the conversation, but also for the listeners, we should want to understand that answer. Well, and in your opinion, what does that look like to you?
Oh, it's real simple in my mind. The Colombian geniuses, they started producing 80 to 90% white heroin, putting them in these little bags, and they got people addicted. They got a new population, younger population addicted, because historically, Vince, the younger generation wasn't going to go to some dark alley and put a needle in their arm and shoot up heroin. And then they could buy these bags for $10 a bag and snort it up in their nose. Well, then, here, this is the key to your question right here. The American cartel emerged, Big Pharma, okay? They dumped 100 billion opioids into America in a 9-year period. In Washington Post, outstanding reporting, Scott Higham and Sari Horwitz, who I worked with, they actually did a report showing that Big Pharma produced 100 billion and dumped them into America, and they operate with impunity in America. So a lot of people got addicted. The young kid goes to the doctor for root canal. Instead of giving the kid Motrin, the doc says, "Here, kid, here's 50 oxy," right? Yeah. The kid goes home, never a drug addict, starts taking oxy, and then of course he's going on the streets to buy this stuff here in the bags, okay?
Yeah. We've seen in the military.
Getting addicted to heroin. And then later on, because of this other madness with fentanyl, now the heroin snort is a dead kid because it's got fentanyl. So, America's been addicted to drugs a very long time. This isn't anything new. But what's new now is that there's increased depression, increased anxiety. Yeah. So they're turning to drugs at a younger generation. And here's what else is new. When I grew up as a DEA agent, kids were not sitting in their homes, in their bedroom, on these social media sites, clicking on links to go order drugs and have the drug dealer come to the house and making payment on Cash App or, Snap, Venmo, or one of these payment systems, right? They're making it easier. And unfortunately, social media companies have actually facilitated the ability for young kids to buy these drugs from the cartels. So the cartels are now in everybody's bedroom. The cartels are in your living room. They're in your house all day long. So for parents that are not paying attention, because parents are much busier today, they're working, both of them usually, right? So they're trying to make a living. They're trying to support their family. So the kids have more, time alone. Unfortunately, that's leading to some serious consequences. So a lot of complex issues are involved. But Vince, our government's not staying up with the times either. Like the bad guys are using encrypted apps. Law enforcement can't even infiltrate the damn things, even with court orders, because our Congress has got cobwebs in their eyes and their ears and you know what else. They're not paying attention to the evolving communications. So law enforcement is in the dark. They are not able to do their job because they have probable cause to go after some of these large organizations. In many cases, they can't because they don't have the laws in their favor. The bad guys don't operate with any laws. They have no budget. They have no bureaucracy. So we're falling behind rapidly.
It's for the listeners and viewers, this is not like a story that only addicts and those families that have history of addiction needs to pay attention to. There's an average kid at a high school in a locker room, takes one pill for a headache and it has laced with fentanyl. This is a concern for me, for my kids who are in high school, my kids who are in junior high, my kids who are in college. This is a conversation that is so scary. Like you said before, you can make one mistake, you can experiment one time, and you can find yourself never waking up again.
Well, Vince, it's even beyond what you just said. You did a great job articulating that. Thank you. But here's what I would say to that. There's kids that get dropped off at like this Bronx daycare center. And there's kids that look like this young Dominican, beautiful baby. His mother dropped him off to go to daycare. He's not a drug addict. He was 1-year-old kid. And guess what? Mom got the call that the kid is dead. And guess what? The daycare worker, the drug trafficker, instead of calling 911 when 3 babies went down or 4 babies went down,
I read the story.
He called her husband to get the stash out of the facility, and then they called 911. It was too late. And by the way, I'm glad you brought that up because we're making collages now with all these very young kids that are dying. I have a friend that I work with in my work here with the Lost Voices of Fentanyl. This poor woman. She had a 3-year-old, okay? His name was Cash. I'm not going to go crazy with these pictures to your audience, but this is the mama at our rally last year, okay? This poor 3-year-old gets dropped off at her ex-husband's house for the weekend, right? The custody battles that everyone's dealing with. He gets up into the stash in one of the tenants' rooms, and his 3-year-old baby died from fentanyl ingestion. Now, here's the part of the story I want to tell you. What I was very touched by this beautiful story is that this woman was addicted her whole life. She smoked crack. She was homeless, living on the streets. She was trying to get her life back together. She got pregnant. And by the way, she admits saying like, look, I couldn't get off the addiction. It was powerful. But as soon as I knew my baby was coming, I stopped. I stopped using drugs. She said at the end, she says, I never thought that my addiction would end because of the birth of my child, but my child died because someone else's addiction.
Damn.
It was so sad. And now I have a picture. I'm not going to show it, but 3-month-old in his coffin. I'm sorry, 3-year-old in the coffin as mom is sitting there over the coffin. So it's not just drug addicts. It's not just, people with depression, anxiety. It's a whole, like our future generation is dying